welcome back to the Thoughtful Journeys podcast. My name is Tyler, this is Justice. Today is episode 10, and we are out here at the Martin Nature Center in Oklahoma City. It's beautiful out here today. We got the highway behind us though.
Oh yeah.
So, still good scenery, fucking amazing weather today.
Oh, it's been amazing. Yeah.
Beautiful. But we came out here today to talk about the American school system. Some, like the history behind it and kind of our thoughts on what we think could potentially help and how it got to this point. And yeah.
Sorry about the delays on this episode. We got some new equipment, new microphones, new camera, and we figured out that there's a 30-minute limit to filming on a camera, and it took some troubleshooting, but here we are. We got it figured out.
This is take 3 of episode 10.
Of this episode, yeah. But it's been good every time, and it's about to be fucking good again, so.
Third time's the charm, right?
Yes, sir. Hopper's got the facts about this. He did the research for it, and it's a very interesting topic for sure.
And just like everything we talk about on the podcast, everything will be linked, all of our sources. So yeah, just school system, right? I want to start off with a nice gentleman named Horace Mann.
Mr. Mann.
Mr. Mann.
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
He was the head of the Board of Education for the state of Massachusetts in the 1830s. He was looking for a new school system to bring to America. So he's looking around, and he traveled to what is now modern-day Germany, which was then Prussia, stumbled upon their school model, and he was like, you know what, it's a good school model. Let's bring it back here to America. So he quickly implemented that in the 1837 to Massachusetts, shortly after it spread nationwide, because of the effects it had on the country. And here's some like backstory on the Prussian model, how it was created, why it was created. So essentially, Napoleon, when he was fighting his wars, taking over, he won a war against Prussia, and the Prussian emperor thought that he lost the war because his soldiers didn't follow orders well enough.
Okay.
And they thought too much for themselves. Multiple times I saw that when I was looking this up, they thought too much for themselves.
Too much
which
self.
is very interesting.
Yeah.
And so pretty much he wanted a school system where, number one, they would love the country. They would do anything for their country.
Right.
Number two, they would follow orders without question. No matter what the government says, I'm going to do it because I love my government and they're right no matter what. You know, kind of just brainwashing them in a way to where they think their government can do no wrong, which we have similar things here now, as you know. Now, you might disagree with one political party, but no matter what your political party says, a lot of people will just think that it's right just because, you know, they're Republican and a Republican candidate says something.
Right.
Therefore, it's the right thing.
Right.
But pretty much, a really big thing with it too is being mandatory to go to school. Because before this model was implemented in America, it was not mandatory to go to school in America. So it was mandatory to go to school all the way up through high school. And the whole point of it is to get people to follow orders and love their country. And, you know, clearly we've had a lot of changes since then. Laws get passed all the time. And it's different in each state, too. Each state has their own schooling, funding, curriculum, all that stuff. But, you know, when the core principle is taught to pretty much get you to obey rather than to get you to learn,
right?
You know, that
be creative.
It's not the best thing.
Yeah.
And a quote from Johann Finch, however you pronounce his fucking name.
Please correct us in the comments.
Yeah, please. He was a key contributor to the Prussian model and the creation of it. Here's one of his quotes in the process of creating the Prussian school model, which is now used today in America. Education should aim at destroying free will so that after pupils are thus schooled, they will be incapable throughout the rest of their lives of thinking or acting otherwise than as their schoolmasters would have wished.
Incapable.
Incapable of thinking for yourself.
Unable. Unequipped.
I mean, when that's the core value of something, I mean, that's evil.
It's pretty obvious, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's scary to think about that the creation of the school system that I went through, that you went through, that everyone here in America has gone through, that's what it was founded on. And I don't know, man, it really makes me wonder about whether I should send my kids to public school. Because you know for a fact, all the wealthy people, their kids they're going to private school.
Yeah, they're not
going to public school.
No, it's not designed in that way.
And I guarantee you, Horace Mann's children went to private school.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like,
with him knowing
he knew that he implemented this.
Yeah.
And so he knows, like, why would I send my kid there, you know?
Right.
Like, I want my kid to be able to think for himself. So
yeah. Well, it's really interesting, man, because you bring up a great point of doing this research, because like we've talked about before, Carnegie, Rockefeller, like these guys were the ones that you kind of look this stuff up and it's like, oh, they're the ones who set up the system, blah, blah. They definitely helped implement the system with the money, but like this was even before them, you know? And
this was 40, let me see, yeah, so John Rockefeller didn't get involved in school system until 1903. Okay. Oh, this is way more than 40 years, my bad, guys.
Yeah.
70 years.
70 years, yeah.
Yeah, the 1830s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is like...
prior to,
This is like, what, a generation before, you know? Like, this is a lot of time before Rockefeller became involved with the school system. And like you said, you know, his famous quote, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers."
Right.
And he's like, now, obviously, clearly, that quote is something, you know? And so it is something to think about and be like, okay,
so he implemented
this is where
these
this guy's head's at.
Right.
But he didn't get involved till 70 years after the implementation of this. So, I mean...
that tells you a lot. And that's it. People, you know, it started with them as the general idea. And they definitely continued the idea of control, you know, make drones, conquer, let's have a nation of people that take media in, propaganda in, and then do what we want them to do. You know, they helped implement that, but that idea was in place before then. You know, it was Mr. Mann, Johann Finch, these guys, like, they were, so there's always been kind of a push to, okay, let's get this area set up and let's make some very consumer-based people, not creative, not, you know, follow orders, fight for the country, don't question anything. And, you know, a huge part of that, I think, was the lack of information people had access to. You know, you grow up in the early 1900s.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe had radio later into the, you know, then you get TVs in the 60s. But, like, that's how long it took for people to, when those things came out, a lot of the information was coming from very specific channels, you know, big companies. And in the beginning of radio, it was very diversified, but now we're seeing people start to question the status quo and be like, hey, why do we need to go to war? Because we have access to all this information. We can look up somebody like James Corbett, you know, like we've been talking about, and get real details about something with sources and not get a skewed take on it. And that's, I think, what's kind of changing the tides and makes the future better.
Now that you say that, thinking about being in 1903, you hear that John D. Rockefeller creates a charity called the Education Board that's donating millions of dollars to schooling. You're like, this guy's awesome.
Insane. Yeah.
This guy's donating money for our kids. Like, this is awesome.
And he also ran a commercial campaign and / radio campaign of like give a dime. It was something like he was like giving a dime to people, and it was like footage of him giving dimes. This guy's like a millionaire in that time period, which is like an unfathomable amount at this point, maybe a billionaire. And just like giving a dime to people was his like putting that foot forward. Now he was the first like billionaire guy to kind of try to get that personal, you know, persona out there to people. That like, oh, I'm for
guy.
you. I'm for you people. Yeah. So this thing's been around since the beginning. And it's just interesting to think about, and especially thinking about, like, reflect on your, you know, what you've gone through and your experience in our school system, you know, give a rundown of kind of what you feel like you took from that, knowing this now. Like,
I mean, okay, so obviously looking back in hindsight, like the way I think now is totally different than I did growing up, because in a lot of ways I was living like they want people to be out of the school system, which is really just not thinking, not asking the questions about like when we say like following orders without question. Like I was just doing what I was told to do by teachers and whoever in the school, just because that's what I thought the right thing to do was. I never thought to ask why about anything. And so I honestly, not to bore, I don't want to bore everyone. Honestly, it's just very normal. Very normal life up through high school. A couple of years after high school, as I've talked about before, I went through some bad health issues, a lot of bad stuff, dark times, and
make sure this is working still. Just keep going. I'm sorry.
At one point, even suicidal, you know? And that's when I really started to think about things and question. That's when I started questioning all the stuff that I've been told my whole life. Like we've talked about before, I went into college thinking, oh, I'm going to be a sports journalist. Why did I want to be a sports journalist? Or why did I enroll in school for that? Because I always liked sports growing up, and everyone around me told me I should do that. I never thought, would I like doing that? Does this sound like something I want to do for my... No, people told me, like, and not just the school. Like, I did have teachers tell me that, and coaches, but I've also had family members say, sports journalism, that'd be great for you, you know? So I just took that and I was like, okay, I'll do it. Not without thinking about, is that really what I want to do? Is that really what I'm going to do for my whole life? And when I really started asking myself those questions about why am I doing this? What is my purpose in life? What do I want out of my life? And what can I do to create the life that I actually do want? And what that had to do had nothing to do with school, nothing to do with college. And we'll get in more into college in a little bit, but yeah, growing up mostly just normal kid, following the rules. And a couple years after high school, I had a really serious, like, questioning about everything, about life, about how I didn't learn anything. And I got, you know, I was mad, you know, like, why the fuck did I not learn anything? Why am I not prepared? But, you know, at the end of the day, really, it is my fault too, because you're a great example of someone who, from a young age, you learn to ask those questions. And
thanks, man.
Yeah, because I mean, you talked to me before. I mean, like, when was it when you started asking yourself those tough questions? Because I was 20. I was like 20, bro.
When I had my first profound, like, questioning thought was like, I've mentioned this a few episodes now. It was psychedelics at 15, eating a Twizzler and going, why am I putting this gelatin in my body? That was my first real, like, profound, like, okay, what is this? Why am I eating it? Is there nutrients in this? It doesn't come from the earth. Like, that was kind of my first thought. But I would say it was conditioned into me by my dad. And I really appreciate how my dad raised me. He raised me in a way that was very, like, hard line, like, you got to do this, conform. And he would get mad at me. I remember being young and he'd ask me, why aren't you conforming? Like, why aren't you conforming to this? Like, this is what will make it easier to conform to it. And just, he would always tell me our relationship was a dictatorship, not a democracy. You know, and if I did anything that, especially in my teenage years, that kind of went against what he wanted me to do, like, let's say just not following the rules, I'll leave it to that. He would say, you know, he would take something from me. And through all that, like, growing up that way, it really conditioned me to push against authority, you know, and ask questions. And, you know, because as a kid, you rebel against what's forced upon you. That's just what happens.
Right.
And I just, from a young age, kind of did that. And it led to, by the time I got to high school, I was making great grades, but I was finding loopholes in the system to make great grades. I would make an agreement with the teacher about assignment, like, I do these 4 questions, grade me on those 4, I know they're the hardest, leave the rest out.
Quick note, looking back, how fucking easy is it to make good grades in our school system, too? Like,
just apply yourself.
Anyone. And dude, honestly, you don't even have to apply yourself, bro. you can cheat your way through our whole system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's no creative method to it. It's literally just, here's the answer, this is the only way. If you figure out that answer, whether it be from copying off of someone's paper, you know, like it doesn't matter. But yeah, I just wanted to note that.
Well, isn't that a great representation of how America is?
Yeah.
Like Tim Dillon says America is like a big Ponzi scheme. And I mean, dude, it's like, that's just what it is. Like, and I grew up and going through high school, I was not taking it serious because like, okay, I'm being told to go to college. I don't know what I want to go to college for. I'm depressed. Right. What am I, you know, like that was me coming out of high school around, like I was probably 17. Yeah, I graduated at 17. So you went through it at 20, I went through it at 17. But that's not, I had the same questions. Like I'm depressed. I've lost my friend group. Fortunately, I found a great girl, my wife, Marissa, she's amazing. And she kind of inspired me to go back towards the good. But I was at a point where I was depressed and I was just like, this system doesn't matter at all. Why should I care about this? You know? What am I going to go to college for and do? I don't know what I want to do. I don't know who I am, you know? And fortunately went on a journey independently and found myself through the hard experiences and, you know, made myself who I am. But it's just, you know, I think that, like what you said specifically, it's just a great representation of the system is you can cheat your way through all of high school, all of, you know, college. Especially nowadays.
No, I went all the way through college, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, not like grad school, but
like Quizlet.
I have a degree.
Yeah.
You know, and honestly, like, it's very easy to cheat on everything.
Yeah.
Outside of exams, you can cheat on everything.
Yeah.
Every homework assignment, because a lot of college too, I mean, like, obviously, professors do it differently. That's a little different than high school, where professors can kind of have their own assignments and grading system.
Yeah.
But specifically, I can speak from my experience where I went at Oklahoma City I went to a community college, but still a lot of the homework is very like, you know, you can look it up, and it's very easy to get your way around it by cheating. You don't have to put in a whole bunch of effort to pass classes, which I think, honestly, like when you're majoring in, like, let's say you want to be a doctor, like or a doctor or like an engineer, and you're taking some class that's required but has nothing to do with your core,
like the general ed stuff.
I mean, like, of course those kids are going to cheat in those classes.
Right.
Like, it has nothing to do with, like, because even if someone's seriously committed to become a doctor, if they're taking a class that has nothing to do with being a doctor.
Right. Like political science.
Yeah, like, why the hell would they not cheat in that class? What's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's like,
what are they benefiting from that besides getting conditioned? Yeah. But who are the people that go through college generally are going to end up working for an entrepreneur that started a business.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
who didn't go to college.
Who didn't go to college.
Most of the time.
Generally, how business works too is you find your way around the system, you know?
Yeah.
And that's how America works. And it's really interesting because I'm thankful. I love this country. I've done a lot of stuff that I didn't think I'd be able to do by finding my own way, you know?
Yeah.
And I love the opportunities and the life that I've had.
Oh, dude, regardless of what we're saying today, we're going to criticize America for sure in future episodes as well.
Yeah.
Dude, we still live in the best country in the world. Don't get it wrong.
Absolutely.
But, like,
absolutely.
At the end of the day, man, like, this, finding out about the school system and how big of a, like, lack of knowledge there is about the history behind it is insane.
Yeah.
Because even me and you, who over me, for example, I'm 23, so like the last 3 or 4 years, bro, I've been like diving into similar stuff to this.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this until I really like invested into it and took the time to research it, you know, and like I thought Rockefeller, you know, was like really what kickstarted like the whole like, let's create factory workers kind of thing.
Yeah, him and Carnegie,
Like that was his quotes more as like, I want factory workers, not free thinkers, you know. But like years and years before that, very similar ideas is what created all of it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, you know, it's always, the world's the same way it's always been, you know, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You can compare history.
It's different people in power and people in different positions, but like, same stuff, dude.
History does repeat itself in a way, you know, because the events that happened in the past, you can compare to nowadays, especially when you compare specific circumstances and statistics. Like, with how society's moving and the way things are going, and things move in cycles, basically, is what I'm saying. And it seems like from the inception, I mean, Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Common Sense by Thomas Paine, all of those things caused America to revolt and become their own country. Amazing. That's amazing.
Right.
But it quickly became corrupt and has constantly moved in a direction that's questionable. And especially nowadays it seems like our government and our, system is pushing for war.
Yeah.
And the CIA has destabilized who knows how many democracies across the world through coups.
I mean, corruption's bound to happen, right?
Right.
And no matter what it is.
Especially as the system gets older.
Especially at a government level. I mean, when you have that much power, dude, and you get one wrong person up in there, that's going to cause the whole thing to fall apart.
But the thing is even when those systems become corrupt, they become too evil and they fall apart, good prevails eventually. That's been the story throughout history. Evil, like every movie you've ever seen, like Jordan Peterson has a great lecture about that, but like everything is displaying good and evil, the battle between it two, like entertainment, most everything is. And it's constant, but good generally always prevails because evil eventually collapses on itself. Because the evil people start infighting once they lose their power structure, and then good comes out on the other side. That's the way things have worked. But to see that it's been a push since 1839 or whatever you said, for these people to go find a Prussian system that is all about conformity and making you not think for yourself, and implementing that here, that shows for a long time something pretty evil has been building and in the works.
Oh yeah.
And for us to now be where we are and talking about World War III and all these things that you see in the media all the time, but then you talk to people, I mean, I think people nowadays, especially in America, are more informed than ever if they choose to be. And when you're informed, like, that war is pointless. We're just going to make Lockheed Martin, the military-industrial complex, a bunch of money.
Right.
And a bunch of innocent people with families are going to die. What good is that? I think that's the general consensus.
What's the best way for America to get out of debt? Win a fucking war.
Yeah. When has currency changed the most?
Yeah.
After world wars. Yeah. When that happens. The Federal Reserve was put into place after World War II. World War I, was a big part of the United States becoming a dominant, economic force. And it's just, they see opportunity in that, but there's other ways to make those things happen. And, there's a lot of connection to China's growth and the Rockefellers as well, and the implementation of some of their success has come from those things. But I think that there's just a large agreement that there's a shit ton of money to be made off these people fighting. Let's keep them fighting, dividing, killing each other, and let's make money from that and keep pocketing and profiting, buying. And it's just, that has to stop at some point. People have to stand up and say, the Rockefellers, the State Street Vanguard, BlackRock, JP Morgan, Chase, Goldman Sachs, all these huge conglomerates that have run things for a long time, that got out of the 2008 financial crisis, these things, they need to be deconstructed, they need to be dethroned, because they're unelected officials, and that people need to come to that realization. And I feel like that's really the moral of it.
I think it's a very big misconception when people say, older people specifically say, like, it's not like it used to be nowadays and stuff. It's like, it just wasn't in the media, but that's how it's always been.
Yes, exactly.
And it's very well documented. Like, people are just as crazy and corrupt and evil as they've always been. It's just highlighted now because of the technology we have to share it instantly across the world,
Everything has a magnifying glass.
Exactly.
And the algorithm pushes, like, minute things. A lot of times we'll have important topics, but the algorithm pushes, like, someone screwing off in a grocery store, and everyone gets to see someone, like, slip up and do something stupid in a public setting that's like a normal person. But a lot of these issues we're talking about aren't really magnified through those algorithms, and they aren't really talked about a lot. And
they're available now, though.
They're available. They have been available for a while. We have access to them, but the internet's slowly becoming more and more co-opted by big business and information denying that stuff. But
specifically, like, social media is really, I mean, like, narratives are insane. Like, when I have, like I've talked about in previous episodes, dude, like the crazy stuff I hear people say, dude, like every day there's a new big story on Twitter or something, right?
Right.
About how China's gonna do this. There's world war starting today, no matter what.
There's Jewish tunnels under New York.
Nukes have been launched.
Yeah.
You know, like all this stuff, and it's every day, dude. And like people fall into that trap, dude.
Because and really genuinely, do you think the social media apps are the place to get your news? That should be the last place you get your news. That's the most constructed form of information.
Yeah.
You know, and idealistic form of information.
Specifically, I know it's really bad on Facebook.
Yes, absolutely.
Like that is like a political like warfare on there.
Well, yeah, it's been proven that Russian hackers putting this is an example. It's not the exact example, but like a Palestine group supporting Palestine versus an Israel group across the street from each other, organizing that on Facebook groups, and then trying to get something to happen. You know, and it's different groups, but that's a good example of everything through those systems can be constructed with enough willpower and force, you know, and people. And it's just, when you do real research, when you look specific topics up and you read about these things, you learn what you need to know, and it's propaganda is at the core of all of that.
And the thing is too, when you do that, is you can, if you're specifying what you're looking up, you can look at 10 different articles or whatever, and you can cross-reference what the truth really is from that.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, like any of the, however many like news, like companies there are, like the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, anything like that, any of them could post some shit one day, and how many people are gonna just think that it's 100% true no matter what they say?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but if you're looking at 10 different people talking about one subject, you can decipher in there what of that, all that stuff is like definitively true.
Right.
It's not just one person from one article talking about their opinion. You know, you get multiple opinions. Hopefully you get, which would be great, is just like sources of news without bias or opinion, which hopefully is out there somewhere.
I know of a company that does it called Ground News. They compare every. This is not sponsored. I'd love a sponsorship. It'd be great. But they compare the news that's posted on every website, and they tell you if it's leaning one way or the other. They tell you what's in the middle.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's really cool. They sponsor a lot of the independent journalists like Andrew Callahan, Brandon Buckingham, Tommy G. Those guys.
Oh, okay.
They sponsor a lot of them because they're independent journalists, and that's that gives you the independent view of things. And my favorite.
That's beautiful. So Justice, so far today, we've talked about the history behind the school system, our experiences a little bit, and kind of just, you know, our opinions on how the world's been and where it's going, and how it showed examples of corruption and all that. But I think a very good analogy that I've thought of when I was looking at all this was, you think about someone like Kanye West, right?
Okay.
Super creative, you know what I mean? Then you look at someone like Jeff Bezos, entrepreneurial, super business-minded. Bill Gates, another guy you could put in that category. How the hell are those two guys in the same? Do they need the same schooling after they're 14?
Absolutely not.
I mean, like, would you, like, I know we talked about this before. What age do you think someone should get like specialized schooling?
I think, personally, you get your general education out of the way. You're a young kid, you're in elementary, middle school.
Right.
You learn to read, learn to write. You get all of the stuff you need put in front of you.
Basic math.
And you get history, all that stuff.
Very general
education, and a lot of options, you know, because there's no way to tell what you're good at unless you can try it.
Right.
Know? So have a lot of options, a lot of different topics to learn about, the basic fundamentals that make you like a successful human being. And then you go from there. And once you reach high school age, once you kind of move past that, you start to get specialized education like you're talking about. Because someone like Kanye didn't need to get the same high schooling that Jeff Bezos got, you know. But it takes a truly driven individual to pursue that interest and deny that system, you know, so.
Which both of those are examples of.
Yeah.
Yeah, one could say like, oh, well, you say that, but they both went through the same school system.
Right.
And look, they both end up successful in two completely different things. But my rebuttal to that would be, how many people, similar-minded Kanye West people, are out there working a job as a restaurant manager?
Right.
And how many people like Jeff Bezos-minded are like a restaurant manager?
Right.
And like they're in the same job, but they're two completely, their brains operate completely differently. They have different aspirations. They have different skills and what they're good at, but they both wound up in the same place.
Right.
Like, how does that happen? It's because they went through this generalized school system that sent them on this linear path, and they both ended up, like you said, it takes someone super strong-willed to, like Kanye or Jeff Bezos or any anomaly you can think of in any category of career, to break free from like what they've been told their whole life.
Right.
And honestly, like, if a school system can, by the time you're, let's just use 14. I feel like that's a pretty decent number to gauge this at. It could be higher or lower, give or take a couple of years. But by the time you're 14, if there was a system put in place from the time you were 4 to 14, where by then you could figure out what you're good at, what you're interested in, and how those two things mesh.
Right.
And then once you're 14, you get put into a education system that matches your skills and what you're interested in.
Absolutely.
I think that is true. That would be true education right there, where something truly valuable that everyone could benefit from.
And we would have more innovators. We would have people would find their place, which would make a healthier society. You know.
Right.
And especially if it was some sort of test. You get through that general education phase. You take some sort of test. It gauges it. You kind of get put into another round or maybe another year of generalized kind of figuring, you know, through that schooling.
Yeah.
And then it picks your path. It's like, okay, this is what you're good at. This is what you've shown you like. Here's what you could be great at, you know, and then it helps that person pursue that. And I think we can see people achieve those types of goals because currently the only thing that does that pushes you in that direction is family. You know, and we're seeing, like, we've had an episode about family and fatherhood and how the family is kind of all over the place right now, especially in America. But the people who do achieve those things, like a Kanye, like a Jeff Bezos, like whatever innovator you can think of, generally they have somebody behind them that's like, you can do this. I'm going to train with you, train you, help you, a mentor, a parent, whatever. And they push them in that direction. Like Kanye had his mom. Jeff Bezos in the Lex Friedman podcast talked about his grandpa, you know, and there's just, there's always somebody pushing you. But if it's not just a family member pushing you and there's a system to push you and help you and not just give you,
well, if it was normal to push into those skills and interests, like if that was a normal thing, because you're kind of fighting, you're going against the grain when you're Kanye West and you're 15 making beats and, you know, like dropping out of school and stuff, you know, like you're fighting, you're going against it at that point. But if there's someone that's encouraging your interests, and I think it's important to not just say interest, because you ask most 14-year-olds, they want to be a YouTuber or a professional athlete or, you know, a music artist, because not everyone's going to be Kanye West. Not everyone's going to be Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates, you know what I mean? But they're not going to wind up in a place that they're going to end up depressed, you know? They'll end up in a place that it feels like it fits them, because not everyone's going to become a millionaire from whatever they do. Not everyone's going to become famous or have super high status, but if you're doing something that you're pretty good at, better than most people at, and that you're also interested in, man, that's all you need.
Well, you could be at any level of that. You don't have to be the top tier professional at it. You can be the guy that's helping that top tier professional. You can be, like an instrument in that process. And if you have a society full of hopeless, lost people, you're going to have systems that erode, and just like we're seeing, you're going to have problems. But if you have a society that's designed to push people into their passions, push people into their true strengths and skills, you're going to have a fulfilled society that functions well, but that's too free. that gives people empowerment. If you empower people, you free them, they can make their own decisions, they can do what they want to do, you know, and that's, I feel like the scariest thing for the people, like we mentioned Rockefeller, we mentioned these other big companies that have been kind of orchestrating some of this stuff, but
Right.
if those people are scared of people being empowered, because if you have a bunch of empowered people in your populace, they don't need you.
Yeah.
They'll become self-sufficient. They'll work within their community to create what they need. They'll, you know, everyone, the people that find their skills, the baker, the butcher, the smith, the, you know,
Yeah.
more how things were back in the old days. Like, people will find that skill set and they'll benefit their community, and they don't need this
Right.
big corporation to come
They're
in.
not relying on government.
Right, yeah, it will be a state
Or a
thing.
big company.
A state and a city
Yeah.
would be self-sufficient. They don't need you to tax them because they can figure it out for themselves. They
Right.
can, yeah, so, and that's why it's pushed against. But if people truly want something, and we said this 100 times before, I feel like if people unify and truly want something, it will happen.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works.
The thing is, like, it's not gonna make the world a perfect place, because the world will never be a perfect place.
No.
But it, like you were talking about, the good and evil kind of is like, it feels like right now evil really is showing through
Yeah.
a lot, and I feel like we can only speak on where we're from. I mean, like, honestly, I've never even been out of the country, so I definitely can't speak on another country. But here, bro, it's like, it's getting bad, dude.
Yeah.
Like, something else that I think happens because of the school system is how people are so similar. They don't have like any of their own like thought, like free thought and opinion on things, and everyone likes the same things and does the same things, and if you don't like whatever's cool, then you're a loser, you know, kind of.
Right.
That's not just in school either. That translates into adulthood.
Yeah.
Where, you know, like I've talked about in a past episode, where I got made fun of, not like, you know, like bullied or anything, you know, just a slight joke, but still like legitimately made fun of at work one day because someone was like, hey, I'm going to get a drink. Do y'all want anything? Everyone's like, oh, let me get a Coke, let me get a dark. And I was like, let me get a water. He's like, you're going to get a water, bro?
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're getting made fun of for making a healthy choice.
Right.
And it's like, or it's like all the rappers everyone listens to, and like, I'm like, yeah, I don't really listen to rap anymore because, you know, it all sounds the same. It's talking about all this negative stuff. Oh, you're a square, bro. You're a you know what I mean? Like, all jokes. Like, I don't get offended or actually bullied, like, by that. Like, it's people that, you know, I'm cool with and stuff. But, you know, they'll make remarks like that. And it's like, that's how people think, is like, whatever is in, whatever the thing is, if you don't like it, then you're a loser. You know what I mean?
Tim Dillon had a great point about that on the Tucker Carlson YouTube channel, where he talked about you used to be able to go to different parts of the United States and you would find people that are nothing like the people you'd have met before, because they had true experience from that area. Like, go from New York to Oklahoma to West Virginia, all those people are going to be completely different. Now you go to those places, the majority of people are going to be the same. It's the people that are tuned out that are going to be the different ones, you know? And it, like you said, it's that conformity. What used to stick in high school, what used to stick in elementary school, now seems to be nationwide, global, where it's like...
And that's because of media, really.
Yeah, and it's the interconnection of everyone.
And colleges, everyone, you know, like at OU, you can find someone from like every state.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And they all
I lived on campus for 4 years, and I saw and met like people from all different kinds of states, you know, like any state you can think of, I met someone, you know, and that kind of intermixes the cultures too, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, people going to school in different states,
it would have been
like,
it was a better thing whenever it was.
You wouldn't be able to tell, you know, that they're from a different state.
Right, you couldn't look at them and tell. And back, like, okay,
you couldn't talk to them and tell.
Me and Marissa got the whole collection of the Midnight Specials DVDs, and it's performances from 1973 to 1980.
Okay.
Everyone that performs, every performer, because it's just a performance from every artist from that time period, pretty much on the show that was aired on TV. Every performer is completely different from the other. Every performance is completely different. Nowadays, I can watch a country performance, a pop performance, and a rap performance. It's pretty much the same. It's the main person on stage singing. Like, it goes from, like, Gladys and the Pips, which it's this wonderful soul singer and her 3 backup singers, and they're dancing while she's singing and then doing backup vocals. And then you see someone like Seal and Carol, or let's say like Fleetwood Mac, and it's completely different. Like each performance is completely different.
Yeah.
It's because people are truly unique in that time period. People weren't incentivized to all act the same and be the same. And generally, the people who all acted the same and stayed the same as in high school and did what was expected of them in their late adult life became the losers, because the people who stayed a jock, the people who stayed the popular pretty girl that got everything, didn't accomplish shit because they expected it all to be given to them. But the people who had no real recognition for who they were because they were different become wonderful, successful adults because they chased that difference. And now you're more and more incentivized to stay the same.
Well, I mean, I see it. You see it now. Like I'm not super far out of high school, but what, like 5-6 years out of high school, and like, yeah, I mean, still with friends, and like I was talking to you earlier about I work for like a smaller company, not like a super small company, but like, you know, it's not like a big corporate company, and like, so I get to see like the people at the top a lot. So, and dude, like it's all politics with them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's all about who's doing this, who's doing that. Like what, they're not, everyone has to follow this like standard that's been set.
Of being, yeah.
And it's crazy, dude.
It's unhealthy.
Grown ass adults acting like that. It's insane.
What does conformity do for people, you know? What does that do for someone that, okay, now I'm on this social media app and now I talk about the daily topics. What did that do for your personality? Just made you more similar to everybody else.
Made me not want to talk to you. Yes, that's what it did.
Yeah.
That's what it did for me.
Yeah, maybe tune out. But most people, it's like, okay, so I need to be in that so I can, dude, it's like, even when, like, I play VR, you know, I'll talk to people online, I meet the same, like, general outline of a person consistently via those interactions online. Like, same jokes, same topic of conversation,
same slang,
same everything, talking the same, no matter where they're from. It's like, the beauty of life is the individuality. Why entertainers become so successful is because they're such individuals that they express something that people relate to and can't like express themselves, you know. That's what, like, and we're losing that. We're just creating a bunch of people that do the same thing. Everybody wants to rap, you know, and like, it's just, individuality is being lost. And then if you are an individual, it's like, oh, well, you don't, like, okay, you just don't want to conform, like how my dad would say, like, you just don't want to conform to anything. It's like, no, I want to be myself, because it's not cool just to do the opposite of what's cool all the time. You're not making any progress doing that. But if you're doing what you're truly interested in, and that divvies from the norm, that's awesome, because you're creating something new, you know?
Yeah, like you're saying, it's not cool to do something that's not cool necessarily, but whenever you can see that the only reason these people think that that's cool is because they've been told it's cool.
Right.
And you actually look at it for what it is. So you're like, oh, that's actually not cool. It's just what's pushed, you know? That's what we see all the time. Yeah. Like, dude, I often catch myself, like, where, because a lot of the people I've been around and I'm around at work or friends or whatever, you know, there's new slang all the time that comes through the internet. Yeah. And I find myself saying it too, and I'm like, dude, I sound like a fucking idiot, bro. Yeah. Like, what happened to talking? Like I'm still not. I try to get better at communicating all the time, you know, through reading, and I really try to think when I'm talking, because, especially in professional settings, because I feel like it's really dulled down, like, the way we communicate, the way we talk, dude. It's
Absolutely.
like, it's very, like, immature, and, like, it really is. That's a big, like, turn off for me in general with people, is when people talk in slang and, like, they don't talk correctly, and you know, and they're saying all this weird, like, well, that's a huge, like, I don't want to be around people like that.
An expression of their life and their experience, that's cool to me. Yeah. Because it's like, this is an expression of you growing up in your area and what you, like, how you talk based on your peer group, you know? But if you're saying shit that is unique to your peer group, not unique to the entire internet, you know, you're not saying, like, whatever the topic is, like, people said, sheesh, that was funny, it was a meme, whatever, but you're saying something that you and your friends came up with that's interesting, that's, like, cool to
like
me.
A big thing went around, I don't know if it still is now, but it was where you say something that might be like kind of gay,
Right.
it was pause.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, pause.
Yeah.
You know, like after saying something that
Right.
could have been taken in like a gay way,
Yeah.
you'd be like, pause. That was like the big thing. And
Right.
like, sure, it's funny a few times, but it's like, whenever you do something over and over, and it's also being, you see it on your social media over and over, like,
Yeah.
dude, like,
It's exhausting.
please stop.
Yeah.
Just talk.
What makes me laugh is someone that comes up with something new. Like, I've been talking to my brother quite a bit. He works in the oil field. He's traveling all the time. We've made up, because he's very tuned out too, we've come up with multiple inside jokes with each other. Like, okay, here's an example. Because I work overnights. He was staying up late. He was talking to me, right? He said, yeah, I love eating peanut butter honey bread. I said, that's what they called me back in the pen. He said, peanut butter honey bread's what they called you in jail? I said, yeah, so now we constantly have this joke of peanut butter honey bread being like a funny term we can throw out, right? And that's something unique to me and him. That's fucking sweet. I love that.
Yeah.
If it's something that me and him were just repeating and parroting from the internet,
Right.
it's not special. Like, what's special about that? What makes that, like, okay, it's funny that, like you said, the first 2 times. We'll laugh.
Yeah, a couple times. I mean, yeah, sure. You know, like, it gets popular for a reason.
Right.
But then when you hear it 100 times, it's like, dude.
I'm sick of it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it really becomes like part of their speaking now.
Yeah.
You know, and not saying just like everyone else. I've definitely been fault of that too. Like, you know, you see stuff, you start saying things that you hear or that your friends say, and you start saying it. That's just, you know, who you're around. You start picking up things from them. That's just how it goes. Yeah. And it's crazy, dude.
Yeah, it is, man. But like you said, that has been put into place. That large-scale conformity has been in the works since 1839 or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they've been wanting people to be that way for so long, and we finally reached the pinnacle of it. We're finally at the point.
All they needed was social media, bro, to really put that bitch in fucking boost, bro.
Information is power, dude. What information you get is empowering you. And if you all get the same source of information, you all like the same jokes, you all like the same music, what power do you have? You don't have any power. You're at the mercy of whatever's feeding you that information.
You have ignorance.
That's a great point. You don't have power, yeah. You have ignorance. Man, that's powerful.
I mean, yeah, dude, because think about it, like, now, okay, not to get, like, too conspiracy talk here, but, like, dude, when big stuff happens that's, like, so stupid, you know, like that me or you would see and be like, you know, it's stupid, but people, like, freak out about, like, on the daily topics, that might be getting put out to cover some other kind of news.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, so, like, when I see something crazy that happens, you know, the first thing I'm thinking of is like, I wonder what's even crazier than this going on that they're not talking about.
Why is this the topic of conversation? Yeah.
Why now?
Yeah.
Why did this happen today?
Yeah. That's a really great point. And I think that's a big part of it too, is it's a huge bonus if you can make everybody look at like Amber Heard and Johnny Depp arguing in court over whatever's happening in the background. Like, hey guys, don't talk about the 2008 financial crisis and the banks being bailed out by the Department of Justice when they caused the problem. Don't talk about that. Talk about this lady at Walmart whose video went viral of her like slipping or something. You know, like
Or like how the economy is just totally falling apart and the dollar is gonna become worthless soon if things don't change. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And people, instead of worrying about that, it's like, but ignorance is bliss, man. You know?
It is. We have talked about that before.
I know I've pissed people off by acknowledging things they do not want to acknowledge, you know? Like, I know that. And it's just...
I've been pissed off by things I've been told by good friends of mine that I wasn't acknowledging, you know? Which is good. I love that. A lot of people will take an advice or, you know, and they'll be like, they just want you to tell them what they want to hear. But dude, when I get talking like that, I love that because it reminds me how important it is to have those people around me.
To empower
because you're gonna be blinded to your faults, you know? I mean, you're also gonna be blinded to some of your good things too. But having ththose people around you to also tell you the good things you don't see in yourself, but also the things that you need to work on too, it's beautiful, man.
It is, dude. It's gorgeous. And that's the beauty of those friendships. But if you're all just talking about distractions all the time, you're not ever doing that, you know? And it's just, I think there's beauty in distraction. Playing games with your friends and relaxing and not focusing on stuff.
Yeah.
That is fun. That's a way to chill out. And
you relax at night, you know, so,
it's a good time. But when it comes to life, when it comes to living your life, if your main source of like gathering is distraction, like you're gonna be losing, you know? And
like if you and your friends never can sit down and ask yourselves why about things, you know?
Right.
Like I think you said it in the first episode how important asking that question is, why?
Yeah.
And you can apply that to anything, you know? Asking that question is one of the most important things because, you know, you could be going down a path that you're not meant to be on just because you never asked that question.
Absolutely,
you know?
yeah. And once you ask it, you change your whole perspective, you know? But it's just starting with that. And I've seen like people that start with that but get discouraged in the journey because it's a rough road. And if you've gone through your whole life never asking why, and you feel inspired to do so, but you feel discouraged by, you know, peers or parents or whatever, just keep pushing.
Yeah.
Like, just, it's good to be hard-headed about certain things.
That's the hardest thing to do, though, bro. Is to be honest with yourself.
Right.
I really, really, really struggled with that. Sometimes I still do.
Yeah.
I mean, but when you really like if you sit on, I'm stealing this from Jordan Peterson, but, and I've done this, and it worked effective for me. But if you sit on the edge of your bed and stare at the wall and ask those questions, you put your phone across the room, no electronics around you, you sit on the edge of your bed and you stare at that wall and ask those questions for 30 minutes, oh, dude, you'll have some realizations.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, is it hard for people to do that because of attention spans? Yeah. It's hard. It's fucking hard. But if you can do that, bro, you will find out some things about yourself you had no idea, or that you were not thinking about.
Beauty comes from struggle, and everything in life nowadays is designed around keeping you from struggling or like having to go through something that like isn't instant, you know? Struggle is the last thing that people want nowadays. You can DoorDash your food to your house, find anything you want to on your TV or your phone. You can constantly be fed and get whatever you want. But what you really need to do is do none of that and struggle within yourself to ask yourself questions. And I think if people are disciplined enough to start doing that, change will happen. But people have to want it for themselves, you know?
And like, struggling in the moment, you know, obviously it's struggle, so it's like very difficult, and like suffering is not fun, obviously, like it's really, really, really hard. But if you can, instead of complaining about what happened to you and making excuses of why you're in these places, always try to find the good in things. Like, always, like I talked about my experience in previous episode in detail about my depression, how I was suicidal at one point, how I had all these health issues when I was only 20, and I was like, why? At first, while I was struggling, I was like, why me? I'm 20. This is bullshit. You know, like, why does this have to happen to me? This is so stupid. This is unfair. Life isn't fair, which life isn't fair. But as I started to get out of it, dude, I started to realize how that's the best thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life.
Was it
the hardest thing? And it was the best thing, dude.
Absolutely.
It was the best thing that's ever happened to me, dude.
I can genuinely say, without like emphasizing or thinking twice about every negative thing I've gone through. I've been through some negative shit, you know. I've dealt with some bad stuff. I can see a positive in. I have learned from it in some way because I didn't let it victimize me. I didn't let myself victimize because I went through this. I said, I'm going to be better than that. And I look back on all of those things, and I know that I grew because of them. And if we had a system that encouraged people to think that way, to go through those things, not give you bare minimum, but give you difficult tasks of what you're good at to make you the best thing you can be, things would be better. I hope that us having these conversations can make things better in some way, in a small way.
Dude, I mean, and we, like we've talked about before too, we used to have these conversations for years before we started this podcast, dude. And honestly, like, I've taken so much value from them over the past few years since we became close, and
Absolutely.
having these conversations. Now we get to share it with people. It's awesome, man. I love it.
I do too.
The education system was founded on some pretty horrific things, honestly, to be totally honest. And who knows if there will be changes, you know? Who knows if America is going to just keep it going the way it is for years and years to come. But being aware, I think, is the most important thing. As long as we can help people become more aware, and there's plenty of people way bigger than us at the moment that talk about this kind of stuff that people need to go like listen to, like Academy of Life, James Corbett, people like that, where you can learn about historical stuff like this. And Moon is a good YouTuber, and
I've grown distant from Moon because he seems to be conjuring like fear mongering.
I haven't listened to him lately.
I haven't listened to him much either. He's just kind of, not
his
to
BlackRock
retract
video is
from your
good.
point. Very good.
He has a good BlackRock video.
There's great information on his channel. But the thing about it, to keep making content, sometimes people have to stretch and make fear-mongering things. But one thing I think we completely agreed on, and with this podcast, is it is genuine. It's from the heart. It's from whether we're repeating ourselves about something like unity and people coming together. It's because we genuinely believe it, care about it, and want people to hear it. There were 73 views on the last video. That's amazing. If anybody likes this, share it with your friends, you know? Like, subscribe, comment. We're going to do our best to keep making more content. Sorry it was a delay. And
it's okay.
Maybe we can produce some more shorts and different forms of content as well, talking about maybe criticizing videos and daily topics and different things. And just a lot to look forward to in the future, but know that we're always going to come from a genuine place. So.
All right, guys. I want to leave us with 2 quotes by education from 2 pretty historical people, Winston Churchill and Mark Twain. Winston Churchill says, I began education at a very early age. In fact, it was right after I left college. Mark Twain, I never let schooling interfere with my education. I think that speaks for itself.
Take from it what you will. Thank you for listening.